There is a tendency to focus a strategy on the purpose, and then you come up with a set of requirements, and then you just give the requirements to the team and says, we just need you to build this. You don't need to ask why. It's almost a military way of thinking about it. Just follow the orders. You don't need to know why. And also that can obviously take time and be complex to communicate. So people often don't do it.
So usually we start with a big initiative, but then you slice it in smaller epics, what we call, and then within those epics, you need to have already clear goals and even better KPIs, so you can measure from where you start to where you want to go. And then it really gives the team first an understanding of why are we writing those user stories below, and why those different acceptance criteria are in there. And maybe that gives them the opportunity to really give the best, I would say, solution, the most optimized way, because we're only telling them, hey, what do we need, the requirements, and the how is really on their hands.
There's a tendency when you give someone a KPI that they will just chase that number, and that can often end up with unintended consequences when you've done very well with one number, but you've made sacrifices elsewhere. So when someone understands the thinking behind that KPI, they'll not only be able to say, well, maybe we need to make those numbers, but maybe there's other things we need to do as well. So what kind of behaviors can we have that will meet our targets without making other sacrifices that we don't want to make? But also they may also realize that the KPI itself isn't quite right.
Simplifying to one number can be a bit risky sometimes, but still, at least we are on the same page. We kind of have a clear alignment and understanding, and creating this focus so the team doesn't have to go right, left, up and down. They really know where they need to put the effort to get to the first result. And then if the first result is not what was expected, or it's still to be improved, then again, this is like the iteration that you do, working with the team in a very, I would say, open communication way. So that's why during a project we do a sprint demo and then a retrospective. So where the team can get feedback directly from the stakeholders on what they did, what they developed, but also having this discussion, okay, this is where we are, we had a goal, are we far, close, and then what can we do all together to improve it still?
Right. Yeah, that's interesting as well, because I know we do, and increasingly, and others as well will, rather than say hiding development behind a project manager, for example, the developers will be present and collaborate and communicate directly with the stakeholders, so that then they can have a more of a business focused communication. Otherwise you can have a talk across purposes where the stakeholders are saying, well, we're trying to achieve this, and the developers might be saying, well, we've built this feature. So it's a way of people having a more productive communication and conversation, I think. So related to this then, do you have any thoughts about the kinds of the best way to express these business goals? Because it's quite interesting, possible, for example, to come in and say, we just need to get an e-shop live.
For that, I'm going to give you the example of the work I'm doing at the Boogaboo client. So they started with, I would say, a very clear requirements of multiple systems, a bit of a legacy where they really need to sell on the internet as a first goal. So that was the basis. And that was already a clear goal. So that was already your first big milestone, and very nice when it was achieved. And then the next step was really to change the mindset of the team, which was like a sort of going to the second gear, where now we can really go beyond, and we can start innovating. And it was really nice to see how the team really switched from going to a very clear, very easy scope on what's the MVP, to now getting, okay, this is going to be more challenging. We need to innovate because we have clear targets from the business. And the discussions around the new epic, the new topic, when we go, for example, talking about how do we do some payment integration, sounds again like a very easy, clear goal of, linking to things, to systems. But actually there is different way of doing it, of displaying it, of giving the options to your retailers. And again, I think the team is happy to contribute to really to get to the best solution for the really like the long-term vision.
If someone has given a certain set of requirements, then they'll try and meet those as efficiently as possible. And actually sometimes there's a longer term picture, a longer term goal that if you were more aware of, you would solve the short term problem in a different way. The long term vision will affect even the short term steps that you take, I think.
Exactly. So, for example, also our client is at the same time changing the ERP, and that has a big impact on the way and the decision we make on which feature we want to develop first. So they need to be aware of that. They need to understand again the really the business goals of the company.
There's another factor as well, which I find interesting, which is about code quality, because there's an idea that everything should always be done at maximum quality, but in reality, it's about time, money, and the job that that code has to do. And often, for instance, we might develop something knowing it needs to be refactored, or that it maybe we're developing something on a platform for a version of, for instance, Salesforce, and you know that the next version of Salesforce is coming out with their own version of that feature, in which case what we're doing is a stopgap. So when you understand the business goals, at the same time, you can be, okay, we understand that the goal is just to have this working for a short period of time. So we don't need to spend extra effort making it completely gold plated and bulletproof, but rather we can make it good enough to work until this future moment.
It's also helping the team to qualify or estimate how future-proof the solution needs to be. And it's true, if the next ERP is live in 6 months, you're not going to spend too much time on the existing one to test or to prototype or to get things done, where you know that you're going to have to refactor in a few months again. I think it's even more important to really have a clear goal in place to let the team understand why we need to adjust and make those changes. And otherwise you would frustrate them and say, hey, we did stuff, we need to redo and why again. So it helps constantly, I think, during the project for the team to be really aligned and to be, again, motivated and have a clear focus to explain why we're doing things.
When you can explain to the people what new information there is, why the situation has changed, and how that, because of your goals, which haven't changed, but that new information means you have to do something differently. And so therefore, yeah, you might have to change something you've done or refactor it or roll back and try something else as well. It's also, I guess, is the case that we do a lot of experiments sometimes where we'll try something to see if it works. So it might, if you didn't know that what you were working on was an experiment, you might be like, well, why did we do it? And now why are we not doing it? But if you're saying, okay, well, actually, we're going to test this in the market, and if it works, we'll develop it more, and if it doesn't work, we'll take it down.
Yeah, exactly. And especially in our way of working, which is very agile, that's the way we want to do it, right? We start small, we test it, and then we get feedback and we refine it, and then we continuously improve according to really the users and what they need. But you cannot already say from the beginning that's the whole solution that we're going to build, right? So you start with usually an MVP or a proof of concept, and you get it from there, and you make sure that you improve it again towards a clear goal. Otherwise, you don't know what to improve, and you don't know towards what you're trying to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. With so much changing, the market changing, the software changing, there's this one fixed thing that you can have, which is your goals. Now, maybe your goals are going to change every year, but at least they're not changing every sprint or every quarter to the same degree. So they give you that fixed guided point in where everything else is in such a fluid state normally. Yeah.
Okay. Absolutely. You need some fixed point in the whole is very dynamic and variable world.
Yes, you do.